Dark Game by Rachel Lynch. Read by Clare Kissane. Chapter 1. Kelly opened her eyes and struggled to remember where she was. She'd been dreaming, again. It was the same dream. In it, she walked slowly towards a door. A wooden door that had been bashed in. It was swinging lazily on its hinges, tempting her to go through it. As she approached, closer and closer, her heart beat faster, and although she knew she was dreaming, she could do nothing to wake herself up. Her hand pushed in vain at the space where the door would be if it were closed tight, and the hinges creaked as the door swayed back and forth, inviting her to go in and take a look. She had no gun, no cuffs, no radio, and no time. But she had to keep going. She already knew what was inside. It was the same every time. But each time she still tried. She would never give up. The squeaking door was her only companion as she walked hazily forward, finally making her way into the room. There, waiting for her, was the victim. A woman about Kelly's own age but appeared much older. She didn't move as Kelly shuffled towards her on sleepy feet. The pressure on her throat caught her off guard and struck her with terrifying force. When she awoke, she was holding her breath. She could still feel his hands. Air charged into her lungs and she gulped at it greedily. Her heart rate caused her chest to rise and fall, and she took a few minutes to assure herself that it was, after all, just another dream. Exactly like the last. Bastards, all of them. Her mouth was sticky and she felt the familiar queasiness of a hangover. She'd only been back here 5 minutes and was supposed to be impressing her new unit. She hadn't got very far, and screwing the local mountain rescue wasn't the kind of start she'd hoped for. But still, it had been a pleasant experience. She looked at her watch. It was still early, and she had plenty of time for a pick-me-up coffee. Then she'd have to get to work. Johnny slept soundly next to her. His back moved slightly with his breathing, and he was tan from a long, hot summer on the fells. She'd forgotten how fit the mountains made you. Her stomach knotted briefly. The memory of the last man she shared a bed with crept into her consciousness, and it was unwelcome. This was a new start, and she wouldn't mess it up. She hadn't screwed up last time. She just trusted the wrong person. Matt Carter. Twat. The day Matt Carter hung her out to dry in front of her team, he'd kept his face straight and his eyes away from hers, not even the corner of his mouth moving, as she'd been reprimanded for being too much of a risk-taker. Reckless, they called her, and Matt never said a word. She wanted to scream like a stroppy toddler, but it wouldn't have got her nowhere. Instead, she left with her pride bruised and her reputation in doubt. She was tired of London anyway. Or at least that's what she told herself every morning when she looked into the mirror and listened to the unfamiliar hush, wondering where all the sirens had gone. If her instinct was interpreted as recklessness, they could shove it. She'd had enough of dead bodies anyway, enough of sick fucks doing twisted shit to people. The kids were the worst. Images filled her mind. A boy of 4 lying discarded like waste on the floor of a dirty apartment in Bethnal Green, a rib sticking out of his side, having been kicked to death. She rubbed her eyes and felt the mascara stick to the lids. As usual, she'd forgotten to remove it. The women's magazines all said it was disastrous for the skin, especially aging skin, but she wasn't very good at taking advice. However, after a night with the man she might want to see again, it was important to look at least semi-seductive, and she wondered where the bathroom was. She sat up and stretched. She'd leave him asleep, she thought. She could do without being detained by conversation. She looked at him. He seemed like one of the good guys, but it was too soon to know for sure. Naked, she slipped out of bed and didn't bother dressing as she wandered around. The house was small, and she found the bathroom easily. She looked in the mirror and shook her head. Christ, she thought. Her eyes were smeared in black, and she took a tissue to wipe them. Her hair was tousled and messy. But she had nothing to tie it up with, so she wrapped a towel around it to keep it dry and stepped into the shower. Johnny was still asleep when she returned to retrieve her clothes from the floor. It took her a while to find her pants, but she eventually gathered everything, then took the pile to another room and got dressed. The clothes felt dirty against her clean body, but she had no choice. The liaison hadn't been planned. That was what made it so enjoyable. Her handbag was in the lounge and she used the makeup it contained to bring some life to her dull skin. It wasn't perfect, but she felt satisfied that it wasn't totally obvious what she'd been doing. She felt a pang of shame at the thought of facing her mother, but it was mingled with defiance too. Kelly had yet to find her own place to live and was unused to explaining her every move. She was 36, but lately her mother had made her feel 15 again. She hadn't been back to the small terrace in at least 5 years, and it had barely changed. The only difference now was that the absence of her father, whose force used to pervade every square inch of it. Now Mum was lost. Kelly being pushed by London and pulled by the death of her father. Pushed by betrayal and pulled by duty. The job with the Cumbria Constabulary was a good opportunity and allowed her to escape. She jumped at it, desperate to get away. She told people she was going to support her mother, but made no mention of the feeling of failure. The dizzy heights of the capital city hadn't delivered a pot of gold after all. Mum had aged. Her sister, Nikki, had aged. Her friends had aged. Life had moved on quickly here in her absence. She'd missed so much, and now she felt guilty. She wished she could have spent more time with her mother, but her father, the great John Porter, had been all-consuming in his perfection. Nicky had idolised him, but Kelly had competed with him. "What do you want to join the Met for? Fancy yourself as Sherlock Holmes, do you?" He taunted her. It had taken her years to finally realise that her father was really not extraordinary at all. He felt the same fears, searched for the same answers, and made the same mistakes that everyone else did. But he hid it well, and that was what Kelly had learned to do too. People said it made her hard, but underneath she cried, failed and got damaged like everyone else. Her bullishness made her father smile, but it only made her mother shake her head and give her that look. It could be the smallest thing, emptying the entire contents of her parents' drinks cabinet for her friends when she was 15. Hitching to Manchester on her own to meet a boy no one knew. She couldn't be controlled, and so she didn't fit into anyone's conventions. It made people uncomfortable. Nicky, on the other hand, ticked so many boxes that they had to be stacked up. Homemaker, cake maker, Julie fucking Andrews. John Porter, Cumbrian Constabulary legend, had stayed in uniform, calling it real police work. Kelly had disagreed and followed the detective route. Her father had sniffed. Mum had worried, and her sister, aping her parents, had rolled her eyes every time Kelly veered further from the sacred path of marriage and children. If only someone would write down exactly what was on that path that was so compelling and distribute it to all 10-year-olds, then maybe kids would try to stay on it. Or maybe not. Kelly did fancy herself as Sherlock Holmes, but she was better, and in the Met she'd proved it. Until the last case and a backstabbing twat called Matt the twat. Move on. She filled a kettle and flicked the switch, then looked into the cupboards for coffee. Johnny's house was well stocked for a man on his own, and she noticed a framed photograph of a girl, aged about 10, sitting on the side. God, he's got a kid, she thought. She wondered if the little girl would stay on the path, or wander off it and forge her own. She knew which one she wished for any children of hers. The problem with paths was that you knew where they were going. She heard a noise and reached for a second cup. She made 2 coffees, each with the sugar in them, and took them to the bedroom. "Good morning," she said, smiling down at Johnny. He propped himself up on one elbow and reached out to take a cup. "You look fresh. Where are you running off to?" "Some of us have proper jobs. I'm reviewing cases all day and it's going to be long and probably dull. But first I need to get out of these clothes." She indicated last night's attire. She went to the window and looked out, sipping her coffee. "Nice place. she said. The familiar caffeine rush.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?